Morgan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. You're welcome.
You're a super interesting guy. You're currently living in Saudi Arabia right now, having spent the last period of your life in Sydney, working in safety and working for some of the biggest brands like Woolworths, GWF, Amazon, and your life has now taken you to Saudi Arabia. And we're talking recently about how you're going to a conference over there called the Saudi Safety Conference, and the topic was scanning the horizon. And we thought it'd be really interesting just to share some of the nuggets and some of the insights from the conference over there, and just some of the learnings and differences between safety in Australia and safety in Saudi Arabia. But before we get to that, you're a super interesting guy because you're a rock climber, which for those who have watched the Netflix documentary and seen El Capitan and what it takes to be a rock climber, but you're a safety professional. So I'd just be curious about how you got into safety, and I guess how do you reconcile those in your mind?
It's interesting. Every time I mention my hobby, it's always people raise their eyebrows and feels it's a bit two compatible things. They just hear like safety and wall climbing, which for me it's not. It doesn't necessarily mean that be part of a dangerous hobby doesn't necessarily mean I'm a dangerous person. It's just for me, safety is a way of life, and whatever I apply at work and teach and coach, I apply in my day-to-day living, including in my hobbies. And rock climbing is such for me, a empowering sport. It's my mental health mind. It's time where I meet my friends, I create a good, strong communities, but also apply what I do in my life and work and safety. So, do my check, make sure we have a climbing plan set up and ready to go, and more importantly, make sure we have a good time. And once I'm between me, the wall and the rock and me, it's just myself. All the problem disappears. It's just me, and then you arrive at the top of the climb, and you got two joy coming out. The first one is the achievement that you just complete a hard climb with your friend, and the second one, when you look backwards, you look at the amazing view that the climb enable you to discover, and that's very powerful to me. In terms of maternity safety, I think I've started within safety from my education. I've done a engineering school that was specialized in industrial risk management. The interesting way for me is safety was never something I thought I would do, and it's just an interview to attend to that school that completely shifted my mind. It's like almost you got the light bulb coming. And I was doing a presentation on a project I've done throughout the year in uni, and it was around bridges and wind and how wind is becoming an increasing risk factor for bridge. And I started from that bridge in Washington, the Tacoma Bridge, that collapsed within a few months of being open. And I showed this is all the improvement that's been made to bridges. And because my mind is I wanted to do construction. I love construction. I was a Lego fan, always still a Lego fan. And my mind was like, okay, construction, my way to be. And that person doing an interview raised a question. It's like, hey, have you thought about risk management? Because all you just presented around, problem solving, how to address a risk, how to prevent things from going wrong. And that's triggered a reflection in my mind. And suddenly you got the light bulb. I was like, okay, that looks pretty interesting. Let's give it a go. And then through the different work placement I've done in France and also in Australia, that confirmed my choice that I love problem solving. I love working with people. So people safety was definitely the way I wanted to be.
Yeah, what an interesting journey from engineering in France, I think in Toulouse, where you're based, all the way to Sydney, Australia. And when you started your safety journey in Australia compared to now, what's the biggest thing that you've seen change in your time, and particularly just in the way that we think about safety?
I guess when I arrived in Australia, a few years later, there has been that big change in legislation when they moved to nice law. And I think the idea of duty of officers and due diligence. And I guess the big thing for me was where before you get a bit of the excuse of the director, I didn't know the thing was happening in my place, so I didn't know such activity were happening. That is could disappear with the empowering our directors with the duty of due diligence, which means you have to go see, understand what's happening in your own workplace to understand that part. thing for me has been the thing that legislation journey in Australia, but also the different company journey, the safety really became more a team effort than just a one person job. I still had the occasion person coming to me and say, can you tell me if it's safe? And just rely on my feedback for them, okay, I got a tick from the safety guy, I can do. But the professional safety has moved less and less being a police on floor, more a coaching, a supporting function, a function that you look for guidance rather than direction. So it's been interesting to see that change in legislation in Australia, but also seeing the company evolving and maturing at the same time.
And is there any projects you've been a part of that you're just really proud of, that you really feel was bringing, the new safety to life and the way that it should be thought about, compared to, you just referenced the old safety police, mindset, compared to the business partner and business function and embedding that within the business?
Yeah, probably from my time in Australia, there's probably three projects that I'm very close to my heart. The first two are with West Farmers when I started with them. One of them was being part of the digital transformation. They decided we had lots of legacy systems. Safety was kind of a add-on to the HR system, which we kind of customized to our needs, but to the point that the system was no longer eligible for upgrade. So we customized it so much that to make it completely our own. So they decided to go, okay, let's get clean slate. Let's go for new systems. And one thing I always be cautious of is making sure we provide our people, our leaders with the right tool, and to enable them to be successful in their role. And quite often when I see a safety system, I see a system that's been designed for safety people also, with all the different buttons, the different data they can get. But when it comes to usability for the end users, that part got missed. So part of that project, I've really made sure that we selected the system with the view of customer end. So what we ended up doing is the safety system was in charge of the first shortlist, but the final selection will be done by people of the business. So I was lucky enough that I got the support from our leadership. So we actually got a working group coming, flying to Sydney, where I was based. So we're talking about general managers, site managers, supervisors. We even have someone from the safety committee. So we have a working group of 13 people from WA all the way to New Zealand, sitting for 3 days and watching demos of three systems. And as part of the demo, I've really said to the vendors, I don't want you to show screen. I want you to show real live examples. So here's an incident. You need to show those guys how they went into. This is a risk assessment. You need to show those guys how you went into. So they really think the thing from end to end. And not to our surprise, but we have, I think, one very advanced system called the Rolls Royce with all the different gadgets and some whistles. And we have probably a medium cost system and probably a low. And they ended up going with a medium one because they felt it was easy, intuitive to use. And where the other one, they felt, although it has all the bells and whistles, but they were probably a bit reluctant with the complexity around using. And then we implemented that across all our 13 businesses within a year. And I think it was very interesting to see how it affected that data within the first few months. I think the first business we rolled it out was Protect All Safe. And within months, we saw an increase of hazard reporting, near-miss reporting, the ease of using the system, making that the incident were easy to investigate. So I think we find overall the safety team was spending less time following up on things that were not done properly because the system was intuitive enough. Also, the reporting function was good enough that everybody was able to, at the glance, be able to see what's happening. So that's probably one I'm very close to my heart around, providing the tools, the right tool for our leaders to empowering them doing the job.
Amazing. And compare and contrast that now to what you're seeing in Saudi Arabia. So you've arrived there and you've had a look around and you've gone to the conference, the Scanning the Horizon conference. What did you see there? And in the conversations you've had, like what do you see being done really well over there? And what are you also seeing just in terms of a difference in mindset in safety?
I must say, I came in Saudi with a bias around safety will be very poor. Like my parents been to Dubai for 10 years and I've seen safety in Dubai and I'm like, okay, definitely not there. I heard obviously all the Qatar stories. So I came to Saudi with, do I really want to stay in safety or not? So actually that conference really changed my mindset around safety and really reassured me that they definitely want to reach world-class standard when it comes to safety. Two things that strike me in that conference. The first one is the number of ministers and representation from government that were there and talking about safety. And when I say talking about safety, it's not just doing the high level talking, this is our vision and all that. They're talking really actionable. I plan, this is where we are up to date, really providing update on where they are. So I think Ministry of Human Resource were talking about their training plan. They want to educate the Saudi team so they can be self-sufficient, providing train and educated safety professional and not just rely on overseas input. So that was the first one that struck me is they committed and they showed their commitment by having that conference and having a large number of ministry coming and talking about safety. The other part was also very interesting is usually in the safety conference, the other part is the vendor exhibitions and all that. In this instance, we have a little bit few vendors, but the majority were Saudi companies such as Aramco, CAF, which is the the financial district real estate company, showcasing what safety look like. And they invested a lot in technology. I think some of those companies have already on VR training. They have a large number of database and really interesting dashboards. So they're really investing into getting the right data to make sure safety is there. So there's definitely, I'm sure there's some companies that are growing. I've visited factories where I was not feeling very safe, but there's definitely a will from the kingdom to really get to the world stage level when it comes to safety, and companies that are some of the big brands in Saudi that are really leading the way in that aspect.
If you could just bring one thing to Saudi Arabia in terms of what you know or what we do well in Australia, what's the one area that you see where there's a big gap that you can make an immediate sort of impact there, and why do you think that's important?
Well, it's a good question. I'm still in my learning phase of what's happening here. I've already touched a glance. I probably the only one I'm thinking, but I'm just afraid to be outside because I don't know if I've seen much. Is maybe health and well-being initiative. I think in Australia we do very well. I think even during my time in George Weston Food, we invested a lot in our employees and the humans by providing them health and well-being initiatives to empower them with knowledge around how to look after themselves, how to look after your health. As we all know, not everybody has ability to. Sorry, let me rethink that wording. I think nowadays the study shows that nutrition in sport is probably number one thing you need to really pay good attention when it comes to looking after your own health. Unfortunately, depending on demographic, and not everybody has the ability to have access to good food and good nutrition, but also good sport. Work getting in a way of life, and you tend to put out second hand. I think we're all pleased with our time in George Weston Food is we empower our people with knowledge and ability to put that time back to those two priorities. So I think in Saudis, we probably have the same thing. Food that's probably limited because everything is imported and therefore everything is expensive. And we got a lot of people coming from different regions that probably don't have that mindset around, hey, I need to look after myself from an exercising perspective, but also from a nutrition perspective. So I think that's probably something I can help contribute in Saudi.
Did you see any vendors or anyone talking about AI safety and how that fits in within a safety function within a business now? Obviously, this is a new area of concern for business, and something that 10 years ago, like the typical safety professional didn't really need to think about or know much about. But I guess now as AI becomes more and more embedded in the business, it's interesting to see how safety functions in the business actually think about AI and the integration of that and their role in that risk management process. Was it discussed at all at the conference, or did you come across anything interesting in that space at all?
Yeah, definitely. There were definitely a number of topics involving AIs, and some companies are already starting to showcase AIs. I think CAF, as an example, they integrated AI with the CCTV and able to recognize whether the worker comes to work with the right PPE, so automatically detect whether you have a high-vis vest, your safety boots, or your safety hat, as an example. I think AI will be very strong around the analytics of data. When we think about it, we have now increasing number of systems that captures data. What has been always the bottleneck is the person ability to analyze the data, crunch the numbers, and also return the data in a way that is easily digestible. I think that's where AI will be very powerful for us, is being able to come back to us and say, the activity you're about to do is green because the equipment you're about to use is up to date in its maintenance. The person is trained, the traffic management is there. You got all the flags are green, you're good to go. And I think that's where AI will be very powerful, being able to digest and analyze a large amount of data within a second and return to the right person with the right information in probably very simplified manner.
You've used a couple examples at GWF, but also Wesfarmers, where you've been able to create change management within the business through good collaboration. And you often will hear sometimes people in safety feeling frustrated that they can't create the change and bring to life the vision of safety and health and wellbeing in particular that they want in the business. What have you learned? What advice would you give like a young, aspiring safety professional who wanted to take a business on a journey and there's multiple stakeholders in the business? Is there one or two things that you think that are really helpful for them to know that you could pass on?
Yeah, I think from my learning, there's probably three things I would say. I always said the first step to fix a problem is acknowledging we got one. So if your stakeholders doesn't acknowledge there is a problem, there's no point to go to the next step. So if you're at that first phase is gather your team together, gather data as much as you can, and make them come to a realization we've got a problem. So, I'm looking at the George Weston Food when we started to look at our health and well-being initiatives. And at the beginning, there was a bit of an acknowledgement of the problem, but they didn't know what was exactly the problem. And I think we went through the data with your teams around, hey, we think we got some data that tells us that this seems to be the problem. Let's start exploring to that aspect. The other aspect is, and I've seen that a lot in industries, is it make me think about the marshmallow challenge. Industry tends to spend a lot of time in the planning phase. They want everything to be perfect before they hit the green button. But in reality, you need to give it a first start, explore, see what's happening. And then if it's going well, continue to explore and then go through that. I know on Amazon, they call it the two-way door decision. So if you have a problem and you want to try something, but you have the ability to revert back because whatever thing you want to try and didn't work out, let's try that, versus the one-way door decision, which is a point of no return. So try to work with your teams around those two-way door decisions. So find a little thing to experiment. If it works, continue exploring that aspect or revert back if you can't around that. The third one is always communication. People are naturally afraid of changes. So it's very important to unpack all those stakeholders through good communication and getting to understand the problem, understand this is what we're going to try, getting to understand the impact of these trial. So they feel a bit more knowledgeable about the problem and probably on board. And then as you go through those trials, continue that communication to explain this is what happened. I know in George Weston Food, when we started our initiatives, we have a lot of people that were concerned. They were afraid they were about to open the Pandora box. They were afraid that people will get resistance and will just completely back off the program. But because we had a continuous communication with workers, with the union representative, with everybody, they felt confident that of our intention first, that our intention was noble and positive and not here to catch the person. And secondly, they had the right support. So they were comfortable that they could go there, try it. If they didn't like it, leave or engage even more.
Fantastic. Morgan, we could talk all day on this. Thanks for getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning to have this conversation and share. And, it's one of the great things about you. You're always willing to, share what you've learned, and, your wealth of experience across, multiple industries and domains and multiple countries, and, the blend of engineering and safety with the health and well-being, and then being a little bit of a daredevil with the rock climbing. Makes you a super interesting safety professional. And if it's okay with you, it'd be great to be able to have another conversation sometime soon.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me today, Matt.